Okay, I think I'm gonna get started. Um, Guys, feel free to ask any questions in chat that you want to, and I'll try to get to them. Okay, first things first, I made some images, and I'm gonna link in chat where you can go to find those images, and they kind of you don't, Slay, but we'll get through the process of making you suck less. This is an unsucking tutorial. So feel free to click on that link, and there's, I think, 6 images in that gallery, and it will it kind of like reveals my flowchart of how I do double X factor Phantoon. So there's kind of a lot of material to go over. This might take a bit, but I'm going to try to be as comprehensive as I can. So I'll start off first by saying that, I'm definitely not like a great player or anything myself. I'm really not that good. I just barely got a sub 50, any percent time a few weeks ago. So that's my current skill level. I tried, doing double X Factor Phantoon shortly after the sub-hour time frame, because I really wanted Phantoon to, not be one of those, parts of the game where you're on a good run, you get up to Phantoon, and then, you throw the run because, it's a 10 round or whatever. So I really wanted something consistent. I used the images in the description on the Super Metroid speedrunning wiki as sort of a baseline for my strategy, but I really kind of went in my own direction and really kind of have made it my own thing. And so this will kind of be my comprehensive reveal of exactly what it is that I'm doing. I've gotten a lot of comments from people, from the videos that I've posted saying, hey, your Phantoon in your last PB was, not a problem for you. Can you explain what it is you're doing? And so that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay, I think the main thing that this strategy has going for it is consistency. I got to a point where I was probably getting a 2 round in Phantoon maybe like 70 to 80% of the time on my runs. I think that's it. I don't think I'm as consistent now as I used to be, and I think a lot of it is just being a little more out of practice. And a lot of it is that, I've kind of been changing things around to try to make it, digestible. And so I think there's some inefficiency there. But having said that, I don't think that this strat can ever be 100% consistent. Sometimes things just don't work. You can do everything right, or you can think you can do everything right, and it just doesn't come out right. And that's because Phantoon's movement is very complicated. And so, maybe you push forward slightly, sooner than, before in order to move into the right position. And Phantoon reacts just a little bit differently. And, there's a lot of intricacies involved. And so I just don't think it'll ever be perfect. Also, this strat might kind of seem to be information overload. It's quite complicated as far as strats go. My suggestion or my advice is to just try to incorporate the strat slowly, but surely. So like work on one pattern and then, wait until you got that down, and then work on another pattern until you got that down. And then a flowchart starts to develop in time. Also, don't be afraid to experiment. If you think that something that I reveal here is less optimal than something else you come up with, then modify the flowchart. So don't be afraid to kind of make it your own thing. I'm predominantly doing this, I think, for people that are maybe haven't gotten the sub hour yet or are in like the 50s range, trying to get down to sub 50. Um, and maybe there's some people that have gotten the sub 50, but they really think that their Phantoon consistency could, have an improvement. That's kind of what I'm the type of person that I'm doing this for. Um, Also, I don't know of any routes that this is really applicable to other than KPDR or old route. I'm sure that there's, um, some sort of meme route out there that, this would actually be applicable for. But, you have to have, wave beam and you have to have power bombs going into Phantoon. And, you don't have that configuration in old route, or excuse me, in new route for as an example. Um, so, maybe someone could do this in like Hundo or something, but there's other strats too. Um, I think this definitely is not the fastest Phantoon strat. If you look at people like Mr. Guy Average or Jack 879, they're doing something different with Phantoon, and that's because they're like low 40s runners in old route, and they're going exclusively for speed. What you lose in speed, it's not huge. It's not an enormous amount of time. It's on the order of less than 10 seconds or so, I think. But I still want to do like an analysis at some point to see just how much time the difference is in the different patterns. But this is a pretty consistent strat, I think, or it has the potential to be anyway. Some strats are almost always the patterns are almost always off screen. Like in that first round, you're trying to get an X factor, but you kind of drive Phantoon off screen, set up the X factor, then Phantoon comes swooping on. We don't really do that in the double X factor strats. Most of the patterns, in fact, all of them except for one, are on-screen patterns, meaning Phantoon is on screen the whole time. You can see Phantoon moving. You can kind of make adjustments to where you are. So that's kind of how this strategy is contrasted with the other ones. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about some Phantoon basics. Like I said, this tutorial might be for people looking to get that sub hour time, and for some reason really want to work on Phantoon at that stage. So for them, I put together some images that I'll share here, and these. Let me just do this. That's better. So these images are found in that link that I posted, and it kind of gives you a better idea of how Phantoon moves. Phantoon has 12 patterns that we need to worry about. Phantoon actually has more than 12 patterns, but you only access the other ones if you pause in the middle of the Phantoon fight. So long as you never pause in the middle of the Phantoon fight, there are only 12 patterns. 2 of those patterns are pretty rare, like less than 1% chance of encountering them. So I don't even necessarily all the time, even account for those patterns, but you can. Okay, so what I have here is just kind of like a map of Phantoon's movement. This little icon in the center here, that's where Phantoon starts what I call a circuit. And the circuit being Phantoon moving in that figure 8 pattern once, and then he if I'm just going to call Phantoon a he. I'm actually not sure what the correct thing is there, but there's about 4 circuits in a slow pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. There might be just like a little bit extra of a circuit, where Phantoon kind of goes past the center on the very last on the very last circuit. So there's actually like 5 circuits represented here, but the last one would be very small. So how to read this? The 12 patterns are kind of divided into like a hierarchy. There's round 1 patterns. There's 6 round 1 patterns, and then there's what I call 6 round 2 plus patterns. And those are the patterns that you'll get in rounds 2, 3, 4 to infinity, so 2 plus. And then within each of those categories, round 1 category and round 2 plus category, there's the left patterns and the right patterns. And that exists for each of those categories at the top. So there's round 1 lefts, round 1 rights, round 2 plus lefts, round 2 plus rights, and then each of those 4 categories has a fast, a mid, and a slow. So that's 12 patterns altogether. So this one is round 1 lefts, fast, mid, and slow. So there's 3 patterns represented in this image. So a green X is where Phantoon could stop and open his eye to do like either a fast or a mid or a slow pattern. And then a square icon, this is sort of like where Phantoon is during some visual cue, and I'm going to go over this in more detail later. But just know that each square is marked with an identifier like D2, and that'll make sense when I show off some other images. Now, so what that means is that when Phantoon gets to this certain part in the circuit, then there's something that there's some sort of action or reaction that you want to take. And again, I'll go over that in more detail, but it's basically just a visual cue thing. This is where Phantoon is in his circuit when you do a certain thing. Okay, so the blue part of the path is where Phantoon is moving slowly, and the red part of the path is where Phantoon is moving quickly. So a first round left fast would be Phantoon starting here, slowly moving to this part, and then opening his eye. A mid would be Phantoon going all the way through the circuit till he gets to here, and then we drop down here to the next image, and then slowing down here, and then speeding up and stopping right here. That's where a mid happens. A slow goes through, so Phantoon comes down here, goes through another circuit, and then goes through another circuit, and then shortly after that 4th complete circuit, we'll stop for the slow. So that's for 1 round lefts. There are 3 more images like this, and they're all very similar. So this is 1 round rights, and we don't have to go through each one. Again, a fast, Phantoon slowly comes up here. During a mid, there's some visual cue here that you're going to want to keep in mind. And it's basically the visual cue of when to prepare for hitting Phantoon should it be a mid. Okay, so when Phantoon does this part of the pattern and is right here, you are charging your wave beam to hit him with a pseudo screw charge shot. And but that's only if Phantoon opens his eye right here. Boom, that's where you get him. If he does not, then you're going to shoot the charge shot into nothing, and that's fine. There's going to be another circuit, And then you're going to come around here. When Phantoon's in the middle, you start charging again. And then by the time Phantoon gets to this spot, you'll be ready for a pseudo screw and releasing the charge shot into Phantoon's eye. Okay, so that's the 1 round rights. We also have patterns for the 2+ round lefts. In these ones, Phantoon does not start in the middle like he does in round 1. He starts either on the left side or on the right side. And so that's what these patterns look like for round 2+ left. And then round 2+ right is here. Phantoon's going to start on the right side of the screen and maybe stop here, maybe stop here, or maybe stop here, all the way on the right again. Okay, so that's enough for just the basic patterns. Again, you guys can like download those from the link that I posted. Feel free to do that. Okay. All right. I got kind of a list of topics that I want to cover here, so I'll just kind of work my way through each of these. I developed this strategy assuming that Moonwalk is turned on. If you do not use Moonwalk, that's not going to hurt you at all. It's going to be identical. If you do use Moonwalk, there are a couple places where you might get tripped up, where you're facing the wrong direction while you are holding charge. And if you want to move in the direction you're not facing while you're holding charge, you'll Moonwalk instead of turn around. Now, a couple ways to get out of that situation. One, you can do a very short hop or jump and turn around in the air. Or you can crouch and then turn around while you're in crouch and then stand up and start walking. Either one of those ways is a good way to quickly turn around and maintain your charge, your charge beam. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You can also turn around if you're getting hit, like if Phantoon hits you or a blue flame hits you or something, it kind of like pops you up in the air a little bit, and so it kind of counts as like a short hop. Yeah, so that's definitely something to keep in mind and be very cognizant of, because you'll be charging your beam a lot with this strategy, and maybe you want to be landing facing a certain direction. So be cognizant of that. All right, you do have to have 2 power bombs going into Phantoon's room in order to do double X Factor, of course. So once you get, in KPDR, when you get the first power bomb pack, alpha power bombs, you have 5 power bombs. You use the first one to open the yellow door into Hellway for when you come back through that route. You use the second one to open the yellow door above the elevator going into Criteria. You use the third one to open that same yellow door but on the other side when you're in Criteria for when you come back down. And you use the fourth power bomb to open the yellow door going into Moat. So you've just right away, as soon as you get the power bombs, you've blown 4 of them. And you have 1 left over that you will never need to use until you enter Phantoon's room. So I have to farm another power bomb in order to do double X Factor. You have to have 2. You could farm the crabs coming up in Criteria right before you go to the Moat, but crabs have a roughly 60% chance of dropping a power bomb. And there's 2 of them in that room, in the Criteria Key Hunter room. And so you might think, oh, I have a 60% chance and there's 2 chances, and so that's a pretty good chance to get a power bomb there. But it really isn't. There will absolutely be a run. If you do this, if you main this strategy of farming those crabs, you will be on pace and you will not get a power bomb and you will be very salty over it. So I do not intend to get an additional power bomb from those crabs. There's another enemy that has an almost guaranteed power bomb drop. It's like 99% chance, and that's those caterpillars when you come out of the Alpha Power Bombs room. However, when you're coming out of the Alpha Power Bombs room, you have 5 power bombs, and they won't drop a power bomb unless you've already used one. So what I do is I open the yellow door into Hellway first, and then farm a power bomb from the caterpillars, and I'll show you how I do that. I've developed a strategy for the caterpillar room that does not lose you too much time. It's pretty good time-wise. So let's see if I can showcase that. Okay, so I'll kind of go over that one in a little more detail, but I'm basically using the power bomb to open that Hellway door, and then I'm farming the caterpillar immediately afterward. And this does not, the placement of that power bomb does not kill any of the cacks, so you do have to kill the cacks if you want to farm them for health or supers or something. You do have to kill them through other means, and I do that with one wave charge shot and a couple of regular wave shots for the other one. So I'll kind of explain what I'm doing here. I typically bonk this door just to kind of set up the speed. Now, if you bonk here, you're going to land here and you probably will not hit the caterpillar, but you can kind of do a backup jump like that to get up here, okay? So I just run, I wall jump up to here, shoot that out, lay my power bomb, and then I actually farm by aiming down and hitting the caterpillar first because it's just a little bit faster than letting the power bomb kill him. And you can see I'm using the practice hack, so you can see my inputs in the upper left corner of my game window there. Okay, so we do this. Farm, and now I'm charging a wave shot, hit that guy, a couple of shots there, and now that is that's a 2 farm for the cack and a 1 farm for the caterpillar, and there's no chance of getting hit by the cack spikes doing it that way, by the way, so that's an additional bonus. And now look, I've got 5 power bombs, so I only need to use 3 more getting into the Phantoon room. So this is a good setup for enabling your double X factor. Another consideration is the health. Double X factor is naturally a tank heavy strategy. There's no way around that. I don't think. It may be at some point in the future when I try to explore 3 tanking, I'll try to see if there's a way to 3 tank and do double X factor at the same time. But it's actually not looking it's not looking very likely because you just have to tank damage. The reason for that is that Phantoon is constantly dropping blue flames as he goes about his circuit, and there's gonna be blue flames in the way, and you can't always clear them out with wave shots, because sometimes you're going to be charging in order to set up for that X factor. And so when you're charging, you can't be shooting out the blue flames, and there's going to be blue flames everywhere, and sometimes you just have to get hit by them. And also, when you do an X factor, you're kind of putting Samus in a certain spot for the X factor particles to converge. And you very often, more often than not, you're getting hit by Phantoon when you do that. So there's just a lot of hits to tank in this fight if you're going to use this strategy. So on the road to Phantoon, you do want to be very conscious of your health. Definitely grind out the segment, from Speed Farm where you refill your health, all the way, down through Wave Beam and then up through Upper Norfair. Alpha Spark is fine. You can still Alpha Spark. Ocean Fly is fine. You can still do that. But thanks, Slay. I appreciate that. But I like to have, at least like 130 going into this room. And even if I have that, I'm trying to farm a little bit of health where I can from the blue flames. So that's something to keep in mind and be conscious of as well. Okay, so let me do an example here, and hopefully I get it. I'm probably gonna, by the time the day is over, I'm gonna miss a lot of these. They're not gonna be perfect 2 rounds. You'll see that. But yeah, we'll see how this one goes. Alright, so this is that pattern that goes off screen. Oh, I forgot that I used a power bomb in my example outside the room, and so I didn't actually have one equipped at that point. I didn't even check that until it was too late. I should have reset the save state, but I didn't do that. So yeah, all kinds of things can go wrong. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's try this again. All right, same pattern as last time. Okay, so that was a 2-round, which is as good as it gets. That's the most you can hope for. Once you get to a certain point, way in the future, you're really going to start caring about, whether you get a slow versus a fast versus anything in between. But at my level, or getting to my level, and even several minutes in runtime past my level, it honestly really doesn't matter. A slow Phantoon is absolutely PBable until you're like close to world record level. So don't get too caught up on whether it's like a slow versus a fast mid or something like that. If it's a 2-round, you've done your job. That's all you can hope for. Okay, so that's our goal every time, is to just get a 2-round no matter what happens. So there's a special move that I need to teach you guys, and I call it the pillar. I don't have a better name for it yet. Maybe I'll change the name at some point, because I don't want it to get like confused for fast pillars or something like that. A different move. But when I was trying to work out what a really good and consistent way to move would be for opening, for when Phantoon opens his eye and you shoot it with a pseudo screw and charge shot combination, I kind of came up with something that it takes a little bit of getting used to. It's a bit of a skill in and of itself, but it is a very consistent way to move Samus. So if I am just standing still and I press and hold the jump button, I just jump straight up with no spin. If I'm moving and I press and hold jump, I jump forward with some spin. And I can move around in the air and all kind of stuff like that with the spin jump. Is it possible to jump straight up in the air with spin? It actually is. See that? So what am I doing here? If you press forward for just a few frames and let go, and then press and hold the jump button, you'll do that. You'll jump straight up in the air with spin. So because you have to have you have to do a pseudo screw here, and then release the charge shot in order to hit Phantoon. You do have to have it has to be a spin jump. But the reason I do it this way is for consistency. If you don't, then you're kind of going all over here like this, and maybe you don't land in the same place every time, that kind of thing. Now you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this vertical only spin jump. You can kind of replicate it by like pushing left and right, back and forth, to kind of make sure you're not moving too far in one direction or the other. That is perfectly fine. It's easier to do that. But if you want to kind of train it this way, then you can. And yeah, it's just kind of a consistent way to do a pseudo screw jump and land in the same place every time. So that's why I do that. I don't always. Sometimes if I'm feeling lazy, I'll kind of replicate it, doing it that way. Just make sure that you are facing the correct direction when you release the charge shot. So a pillar, the way I define a pillar is you charge a shot based on some visual cue. You see a certain thing happen on the screen, and you start charging your shot. Once it's fully charged, you do one of these straight up spin jumps, and then you release the charge shot at some point. Now, one thing, you might think that when I release the charge shot, I'm just letting go of the shot button, but I'm not. I'm actually pumping it. I'm letting go and then pressing it and holding it again very quickly. Because you can see my inputs on the upper left there. When I'm in a pseudo screw and I let go of the shot button, Samus does not shoot the gun until spin is broken. Okay, I landed and I shot the gun. But if I let go and then press the button again, then she will let go of that charge and shoot the gun. Okay, so you have to let go and then press again. Now, in every pattern except for one of them, you're going to pump the button or let go of it and press it very quickly and hold it again. Okay, and that's because you're going to have power bomb selected, and when you hold it that second time, you're charging the X factor. Okay, now there's one pattern which is left slow in the 2+ round, where you actually start charging that X factor at some visual cue as opposed to pumping the button when you shoot Phantoon in the eye when it opens up. Okay, but we'll go over that one individually. Okay, so that's a pillar. It's one of those. And the reason I gave it a special name is because I don't want to, there's a lot of steps to doing this, and I wanted to give it just a simple one word name so that when I refer to it, you know what I mean. I mean this motion. Okay. All right, so every single pattern of the 12 patterns has some sort of pillar associated with it. And you start the pillar, or you start charging that charge shot based on some visual cue within the pattern. So you see a visual cue, you start charging. As soon as the beam is fully charged, you see how Samus kind of starts to flash like that? That is the point at which you will be able to do a pseudo screw. Okay, if I start charging and I do it too early, I'm not doing a pseudo screw. So for a pillar, you do a spin jump almost immediately when you are able to pseudo screw. You charge, it's done charging, I pseudo screw. Okay, so that's the timing, and the timing will be very important. But that's the timing for this for the pillar, for the motion. Okay, so your cue to start doing that double jump is actually when you're done charging, and when you start charging, that's the thing that Phantoon's location will cue you in on. All right. Okay, so visual cues. We're gonna go back to the images that I've uploaded. All right, so here's the flowchart for the round 1 patterns. There's 6 of them, and then the round 2 plus patterns have their own 6. And so this is kind of where things get complicated. And so I think that I'm gonna kind of go through the flowchart and then show you an example of the pattern one by one. So I've got save states set up for each of the patterns. And so there's kind of an opener, like an opener routine that I do regardless of what pattern is getting, because you're kind of identifying which pattern you're getting as you go through this flowchart. You don't know if it's going to be a left or a right until Phantoon starts moving. And you don't know if it's going to be a fast, a mid, or a slow until Phantoon opens the eye. And when Phantoon opens his eye, you have a very limited amount of time to hit him and start the the rest of the pattern. If you miss, then this whole thing kind of goes off the rails, because he disappears, he does sort of like an invisible pattern, and then reappears at some point, and you're not even on this flowchart anymore. So this flowchart kind of assumes a perfect performance. Yeah, so the way the cue that I use for starting the pattern or starting the flowchart is that ring of blue flames that comes in and converges and then disappears at the beginning of the fight. So this right here, the flames start to kind of go around in a circle, and then they converge right there. At that point, I start firing the gun, and I fire it 6 times, about as fast as I'm kind of mashing, about as fast as you can go. On the 6th time that Samus fires the gun, you hold it, and that's going to be your charge for a pseudo screw and for a pillar, basically. So that's when you start charging for that first pillar. It could be a left or a right pattern. You're not going to know until Phantoon starts moving. So let me show you the left slow pattern first. Okay, so the blue flames converge, and you shoot 6 times and you hold it on the 6th time. If it's a left, then you start that jump as soon as the beam is charged. And if it's a left fast, then Phantoon's going to open up in this location, and that's where you do that button pump, where you release the charge shot into Phantoon's eye. The reason you have to have a pseudo screw while you're doing this is so that you don't take damage from these blue flames that open up when Phantoon's eye opens up. If you do, this is not going to work. So you do have to be in spin when you do this. Also, if you fail to be in spin when you charge the shot, under this flowchart, and you hold it until Phantoon opens the eye, you're actually going to trigger the X Factor. Because I think like it's about 1 second from when you start charging to where you're able to do a pseudo screw, and then it's an additional second to when the X Factor will come in if you have power bomb selected. So it's a 2-second window to charge that X Factor. So you have that last 1 second to get that pseudo screw out. But if you're in pseudo screw, that second is not ticking. So it extends the time that it takes to do the X Factor. That's why this works. Okay. So in a left fast, Phantoon's going to open up here. You're going to shoot him. And then we're going to, once we land and hit the ground, and you don't want to be pressing, in all of these flowchart patterns, you don't want to press left or right until you land and hit the ground. Unless you are facing in the opposite direction of where you want to be going, then you want to tap left or tap right in order to face in the right direction. Because if you wait till you get on the ground, you'll start moonwalking, and this won't work. So you want to make sure that you face the correct direction. In this case, we're facing to the right when we fire the shot, and we want to walk to the right. So we don't have to do that. But in future patterns, you will. Also, you never, ever, ever want to hold the dash button during the Phantoon fight. The entire Phantoon fight, you do not hold the dash button, okay? And it's all the locations and everything that have been developed here. That's just how it was worked out. Okay, so we fire the shot, we hit Phantoon, and then we walk over to this location right here, and then we jump. It's a maximum height jump. No spin. There can be no spin in this jump because it'll delay the timing for the X Factor, and you might miss Phantoon if you do that, okay? So that's why you'll notice in this picture I'm holding angle up, and that's so that I lose all my momentum when I stop walking, and when I jump straight up, it will not be a spin jump. It'll be a straight no spin jump. Okay, so that's what that pattern looks like. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. All right, so this should be a guaranteed first round fast left. All right, piece of cake. So that's that's the first pattern. So maybe if you guys want to learn this strategy, maybe get a save state like I did here, and just practice this one over and over until you start to get it, and then you can kind of add more as you go. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next pattern. So whether a pattern is a fast or a mid or a mid slash slow, there is a little bit of a different thing that you're doing with the timing. That is, you're kind of doing this opening routine if it's a fast, but if it's a mid or a slow, you're looking for Phantoon to be at some specific place in the pattern to start the pillar. Okay, so that is a little bit different. Instead of queuing off of that, the blue flames coming in, you're queuing off of a location. So that's going to be a little bit different when we talk about the left mid, and so I will point that out. Okay, so let's talk about that left mid. All right, so the flames come in, and we do the 6 shots and we start charging. We see that Phantoon is moving to the left. Okay, so it's going to be a left. We basically act as if it's going to be a left fast. In other words, we do that pillar as if Phantoon is going to open the eye right here, just like we did in the last pattern over here. But Phantoon is just going to whiz right on by us because it's actually a mid. Okay, no harm, no foul. So the next thing we do is we seek this location right here to set up for a potential mid. And then if it's not a mid, this one's going to be. But if it weren't, we would seek a third location to set up for what would definitely be a slow at that point. Okay, so we're going to seek this location, and when Phantoon's like mid-ridge crosses this line in the background, what I do is I kind of look at like these tiles up here, and this little design with the circle and the rectangle around it. When Phantoon's middle crosses that line, that's when I start the pillar for this pattern. And you got to be in this location, and you got to be facing left. Okay, so let's try it. Should be this pattern, this safe tape. Alright, it's not a fast, so I come over here, and there I start charging. There we go. Okay. So, so in that mid pattern, I start charging here, and then I do the pillar. Phantoon opens the eye, and again, there's kind of a branch here, because if it's a mid, Phantoon's going to open the eye there, but if it's a slow, he's going to whiz by you again. All right, so so in that mid pattern, you hit Phantoon in the eye, and then you seek out. Once you hit the ground, you walk to this location here, and then you just wait for the X factor to come in. I've kind of the way I kind of lay out the room when it comes to what locations to seek. You can kind of see that there's like cracks on the floor here. If you consider the very, very center of the room, which would be right here, like right where Phantoon's midline is, that's about the center of the room. If you considered that to be 0, then I would call this crack -1. I would call this crack -2, and this one -3. And then this one would be +1, +2, and +3. So in every pattern where you end up on the ground, you're seeking one of these cracks to be like right on top of it. And so this particular one is a -1 pattern. -1 is the most common by far. In fact, in all of the round 1 patterns, all 6 of them, there's really only 3 final locations. You're either in a -1 location, or you're doing the thing that we did during the fast, where we seek this location and then jump to the ceiling. There's 2 of those in the round 1 patterns. Or if it's a left slow, the next one we'll go over, then you seek the +1 location. Okay? Yeah, so that's what I'm doing for the round 1 left mid. Hit Phantoon here, then seek -1. If it's not a left mid in the first round, and Phantoon whizzes by you again, then I inch forward. I was at this location, which is kind of just to the left of the +3 crack. Then I inch forward 2 tiles to be just to the left of the +2 crack. And the visual cue that I look for to start the pillar is very similar to the previous one. It's when Phantoon's midline actually crosses the left part of that little rectangle that I talked about instead of the right part. So over here, when setting up for the mid, I'm looking for Phantoon to cross the right part of this rectangle in the background. But if it's a slow, then once he comes around another couple times, I'm looking for when the middle crosses the left part of that rectangle. And then when it does, I do the pillar by charging pseudo screw and then release the charge shot here, and then I seek the +1 location. I seek and maintain it, and what that means is that you're gonna get hit, and sometimes you get hit, and it kind of like moves you forward or moves you back a little bit, but then I will just re-seek that location again. Okay, so that's what it means to maintain a location. All right, so let's try the slow. So you'll notice that I'm going to do 3 pseudo screws here because I don't know that it's going to be a slow beforehand. It might be a fast, a mid, or a slow. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, is it a fast? Nope. Is it a mid? Nope. Alright. And there we go. There's our visual cue, and boom. Alright, that was perfect. To know whether or not you got all of your particles in, you can look at Phantoon's health. So you can only do this in the practice ROM, of course. In the actual game, Phantoon's health is not revealed. But if Phantoon has an 1150, that's what you want to see. That means that you landed all 4 of your particles and you got the damage from the charge shot. If you miss a particle, like if a particle gets eaten by one of the blue flames as it comes in, then it doesn't deliver damage to Phantoon, and his health will be at 1450 because each particle does 300 damage. So if you are practicing Phantoon, you look up here and you see a 1450, then a particle got eaten by a flame. And when a particle gets eaten by a flame, we call that getting flame lamed. Because if that happens, then it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have a 3rd round because you will not do enough damage to Phantoon on that 2nd round. However, I'm developing a strategy around getting flame lamed, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the tutorial. Okay, so that was my flow chart for all of the left patterns in the first round, and yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about it. Really, what I kind of want to be doing is just showing you guys what locations I'm looking for and what visual cues I'm cueing off of. But other than that, the moves are kind of generalized, and so you can kind of get the hang of it yourselves with some practice. If you guys do have questions, certainly feel free to type them in chat or anything. I'll try to get to them. But without further ado, I think I'll just go ahead and move on. We'll talk about the right patterns for the first round. Okay, so let me get that up. All right, so let's do a right fast. Okay, so again, we're going to start with this general opener where we shoot 6 times once the blue flames disappear. And instead of just standing in the spot where we begin, and this, by the way, this location just to the right of -3, that is always where I stand when I start the fight, because it sets you up for a left fast, which is the hardest pattern to deal with, because it you really have to just kind of react pretty quickly in this pattern. So I basically assume it so that it's as easy as it can be. But if it's a right fast, Phantoon starts moving to the right. And as soon as I notice that Phantoon is moving to the right, I start walking forward and I do a spin jump. Kind of into this location here. And if Phantoon opens the eye, then the charge shot will start the rest of the pattern. If Phantoon does not open the eye there, then it's going to be either a mid or a slow, and Phantoon will whiz past you. So same thing as before. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper. Once the right fast comes out and you hit Phantoon, then we're going to seek, -1 again, the same spot. Same spot as we were doing on the left mid. So let's just go ahead and see what that looks like. All right, this should be a right fast. Always make sure that you have power bombs selected too. You don't want to get caught without the power bombs on. X Factor won't work. Okay, moving right, gonna come over here. Seek and maintain that location right there. Oh. So, alright, I'm just playing around at this point. So that pattern there, the right fast on the 2+ round, is really, really rare. It's like 0.3% or something like that chance of getting it. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so that's the right fast. Let's take a look at right mid. So under a right mid, you set up for the right fast, you shoot the charge shot, you don't hit because Phantoon whizzes past, but then you seek this location, which is very close to that location you're at in the beginning. It's just one tile to the right. Okay, so now you're just to the left of that -2 location. And what I look for to start the the pillar is Phantoon's like dangly lobe thing here. I look for it to cross this right angle in the background. Okay, you see that? So in the background, if Phantoon's not there, there's almost like this like park bench looking shape. And there's kind of like a right angle right here. When Phantoon's lobe intersects that right angle, that's what I'm looking for in this pattern, in the right mid. Okay, so I prepare for the pillar, and then under a mid, Phantoon's going to open the eye right there. And then I seek out, this is another aerial. You seek out this location, and then you jump, and Phantoon will slide into your X Factor location. So let's do that. The right mid, round 1. Oh, not a fast. Okay, I lost the pattern there for a second, which will happen. Okay, so this being, I kind of defaulted to the left patterns. But this being a right, what I really wanted to do was just kind of stay in this location here. So let's try that again. Okay. Right there. Boom. All right. And you can see Phantoon has 1150, so that was exactly what we were looking for. So yeah, so that's the pattern there. You start the pillar in this location, then if you hit, you run over here and jump straight up. I call that the aerial pattern, and most patterns where you go in the air, you're doing it from this spot. There's one exception. There's one where you're doing it all the way in the corner. Okay, so that is the right mid. Now, if it's a right slow, then Phantoon's going to whiz past you on the second pseudo screw. What's up, Stash? Very fixated there on the Phantoon lobe. Okay. So if Phantoon whizzes by you on your second pseudo screw, then it's going to be a slow. And so what I'm looking for here is I seek this location, which is the exact mirror image from the location we were at on the right mid pattern. So we were here, and it didn't work out as being a mid. And so now we move to the exact mirror image location, which is here, other side of the screen. And you're facing to the left now. And the cue that I'm looking for to start the pillar is when Phantoon is exactly in the center of the screen. And it's like the last time that he kind of swoops around in the center of the screen. Then he'll come back and open the eye at this location. And then that's when you do the pseudo screw and you release the shot. And and then you seek the -1 location again, okay, once it hits. All right, so let's try that. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, it's not a fast, so we come back here. There's a lobe. It's not a mid. Other side of the screen, and then right there in the middle. Boom. -1 location. Boom. Easy peasy. And so that did enough damage to get us down to 1150, which sets us up for a 2-round. Okay. So that is every pattern in the 1-round pattern. So let's go ahead and move on to the 2nd round patterns, which are all different. All right, so this is my flowchart for the first round, and I have a different flowchart for the 2nd round. Now we call it the 2nd round, but it's really any round from 2 to infinity. They all will be one of these 6 patterns. So every subsequent round after 2 is still this flowchart. Okay, so after the first round is over, I seek this location, and this is one of the more tricky parts of the strat. I don't have a really perfect way of... There isn't a really, really, really good cue for when to start charging. And so I kind of do this one by feel. I will start charging a little bit before I think Phantoon is going to reappear. And that's just kind of an experience thing. Once you do Phantoon enough times, you'll kind of know when to expect Phantoon to to pop up. It's not a variable. It's the same amount of time every time. So, you will get a feel for it. You can actually do this by waiting until Phantoon does appear, and then you start charging the charge shot. But it's pretty tight. The timing is pretty tight because then you have to do the pseudo screw immediately when you are fully charged. And if you do it too soon, then you're not going to be doing a pseudo screw. And if you do it too late, then you might miss the timing on the pattern. Okay, so what I've been doing lately is just charging a little sooner. And if I have to, stand there for, a few frames, extra with the charge shot charged before I do my spin jump because I kind of want to modulate the timing a little bit, that's okay too. Experiment with that and kind of develop a feel for it. Okay, so I'm standing here, and if it's a left pattern, then Phantoon will appear over here. And, we started charging right before Phantoon appears, or when Phantoon does appear, immediately when Phantoon appears. Then we do our pseudo screw as soon as the beam is charged. And if it's a fast, Phantoon's going to pop up here. And then it's another aerial pattern, but it's that exception that I told you about, where we go all the way to the corner, so the corner aerial. And so we're going to seek this location, and we're going to jump into the corner. And then Phantoon's going to run right into the X Factor. So this pattern is one of those ones I told you about where you're facing left when you release a charge shot, but you want to walk to the right. So if you have Moonwalk on, you want to tap right before you hit the ground, but you don't want to start moving right before you hit the ground because Phantoon will kind of start to follow you, and it'll mess the timing up when you get here. Okay, so you tap right so that you're facing right when you hit the ground here. You walk to the right and you jump up to the corner, and if you do that, and you jump up right when you get to this location. Okay, as soon as you get there. Okay, so let's see what that one looks like. So I'm going to load my left fast save state. So this will be, the first round will be a left fast, and then the second round will be a left fast. Okay, so that's what that looks like. I started charging there way too early on the second pseudo screw. You do not have to start charging that early, but I kind of made it work. So yeah, that's what that pattern looks like. Now let's take a look at the mid. Okay, so in the mid, Phantoon does not cooperate and does not give you that fast. And so what I do is I seek this location right here, which is exactly where you are when you start the fight in the first round. And this is this is Stashio's favorite thing. It's another dangly lobe visual cue. When Phantoon's right dangly lobe intersects this park bench right angle, then that's when I start charging for the pillar. Now, the other dangly lobe pattern was the left lobe intersecting this right angle. And the way you can keep this straight is that it's always the leading lobe. In this pattern, Phantoon is moving this way, okay? And in the other pattern, Phantoon's moving this way. So here, this lobe is out in front. And in the other pattern, this lobe is out in front. So that's how you keep them straight. Okay, having said that, this pattern, um, left mid on the round 2 is rare. It's like 0.75% or something like that chance of happening. And so you actually, if you don't want to do the pseudo screw setup for this pattern, you don't have to. If you're willing to accept the fact that you're going to completely throw the fight if you get that less than 1% chance of getting this pattern. I actually did not practice for this pattern until very recently, and I just never got the pattern in runs. So uh, that's an option, but I'm gonna show it to you here. So we start charging once the leading lobe intersects the right angle, and then Phantoon's gonna come in here. We're gonna do the charge shot, and then it's gonna be another standard aerial pattern where we seek this location and we jump to the ceiling there. Okay. All right, perfect. So you'll notice there, if you were to do like a replay on that or something, you would notice that I actually started charging a little late. Again, I don't practice this pattern a whole lot, and so it's not necessarily like embedded in my muscle memory. But I did have the presence of mind to realize, oh, I missed my visual cue. It just happened, and so I started charging. And so what I did to modulate the timing was I didn't jump as high when I did the pillar. Okay, so I did like a half jump in order to make sure that in order to get the timing out correctly. If I did a full jump, I would have been too late because I started late. But since I recognized that I started late, I just did like a half jump, to kind of make up the time. So that's another thing that you can do. All right, enough of that pattern. Let's go to the my favorite, the left slow for round 2 plus. Okay, so we don't get the mid. Phantoon whizzes by. We are going to seek this location, which is very close to where we just were. We were in this location, but now we're facing to the left because Phantoon's going to spawn the eye right over here. But we're basically one tile to the right of where we were, facing left. And Phantoon's going to appear here. Now this is the most unique pattern. It's the only pattern that is off screen, but it's still pretty easy. So even though it's off screen and you can't see where Phantoon is, it's actually not that bad. It's very consistent. Okay, so you hit Phantoon here, and this is also the one exception where we do not pump the shot button and start charging for the X Factor. We're actually going to start charging the X Factor at some visual cue. So you do need to pump the button to fire the shot, but you're not going to hold it. Okay, it's a tap pump. Okay, so we fire the shot. We're going to seek this location right here, the far left corner of the room. And Phantoon's going to kind of do some motion here, and then is going to fly off to the right, and then is going to fly back to the left. As soon as Phantoon crosses the very middle of the room, you hold shot and jump at the same time. You press and hold shot and jump at the same time, and you just do not let go of them. So as Phantoon starts to move to the right, as soon as Phantoon crosses that middle or is at that middle part of the room, we hold jump and we hold shot, and you'll jump up here. You'll start charging the X Factor, and that X Factor will collide with Phantoon as Phantoon whooshes to the left. Okay? So let's take a look and see what that looks like. Piece of cake, right? Yeah, Cher. I won't be doing this for too much longer. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, not really much more to say for that pattern. It's that's one of them that I just never really miss for some reason. It seems to work every time. So okay, I think that's all I wanted to say about that one. Yeah, you guys will get it. You're smart. All right, so let's do the 2+ rounds on the right side. Now, the right fast is another one of those rare ones. It's like 0.3% or something like that. So we're going to kind of act as if we're going to get a left fast. So we're going to charge the beam here. And I do something a little special here, because if Phantoon spawns on the right, you're already charging the beam. And if you press right, you'll start moonwalking. So what I do is I jump to the left, but immediately I press and hold right, and I kind of drift back to the right to set myself in position for one of these, which again is rare, but it does happen. I got one the other day in practice, and it was on random, it wasn't a safe state. So yeah, so that's what I do here. Spawn on the right, jump a little bit to the left to make sure that you're spin jumping, and then drift back to the right to be in position here. And then lo and behold, look, we seek the plus or the -1 location again. So should be pretty easy. All right, let's try it. All right, this is the first round. See, I went way too early on that one, so let's try it again. Okay, that's more like it. So Phantoon's still alive, but that's because I got flame lamed on the second round. If you noticed, Phantoon had 100 health, which is the health that Phantoon will have if you get flame lamed once in a 2-round fight. So the pattern was correct. I just, one of the X Factor particles intercepted a blue flame, and sometimes there's just not a whole lot you can do about that. I will be going over flame lane protection though later on in the tutorial, so that you can see that maybe there is something we can do about it after all. Okay, let's set up for the next pattern, which is going to be a right mid. Okay, so we don't get the fast because the RNG gods are not on our side this time. Phantoon whizzes by, and we are going to seek this location right here for the mid. And this is another one of Stashio's favorite patterns because it's another dangly lobe visual cue pattern. So when the leading dangly lobe, Phantoon is moving to the right here, or to the left here, when it intercepts the right angle on this park bench shape in the background, that's when you start the pillar for this pattern. Now, this pattern is the most common pattern in the second round. It occurs very, very frequently. However, I actually struggle with this pattern more than the others for some reason. And I think it's just, I mean, this is kind of a weird, wonky thing that's happening anyway. And so, there's just something about this pattern that is not quite right. So I've explored a lot of different possibilities here, but I may not even, this whole thing is a work in progress, really. So I may not even be done with it. I may end up changing this pattern around at some point in terms of what I do personally, but I'm just kind of presenting what I do right now. So once we have our visual cue to start the right mid pillar, we hit Phantoon in this location, and then we seek the -2 location. I might do something a little different here because, like I said, I haven't had the best luck with this pattern. Sometimes what I'll do is once I get hit by Phantoon, he's going to come in this way, I'll start walking to the right, and that kind of drags the X Factor particles into him a little bit better. So you might notice me do that. But initially I would seek the -2 location. You could even be a little bit to the right of the -2 location. That might even be a little bit better. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so I think I loaded the right save state for this already. Oh, I missed. That's actually kind of a good thing to talk about right there. I missed because I fired the charge shot into the blue flames, and that is going to happen a lot, So sometimes it's the blue flames that come out in a circle, and sometimes Phantoon drops like extra blue flames, and you hit those, and you don't hit Phantoon. So that's one of the aspects of this strategy, that you can just get your charge shot eaten by a blue flame, and then it forces multiple rounds, and it's just a huge bummer. Maybe at some point in the future I'll look at like ways of mitigating that, but I'm not there yet. Alright, I missed that one. Let me just rewind and try it again here. Kind of for a similar reason as the first time. So, as you can see, the X Factor particles missed. And that kind of is a demonstration, I think, of what I was talking about, where I've kind of been struggling with this pattern. But let me try it again. All right, that didn't work either. Okay, so you see how I kind of moved to the right a little bit after I got hit by Phantoon? I just kind of feel like, I'm not sure exactly what's happening precisely, but I kind of feel like the X Factor particles just kind of track into Phantoon a little better that way. Hey, Eternal, what's up, dude? Um, so I'm getting pretty close to the end actually, but you know I'm of course gonna keep this as a recording, and I'll let you you know you're out of here, huh? All right. Too bad for me. Um, so yeah, so you can just kind of take a look at the video at some point, ask me any questions if you have, and if you have any questions while I'm doing the recording, then um, just feel free to ask. One thing I'll tell you about, there's a move that I call the pillar, and that's when you charge a shot, you do a pseudo screw, and then you release the charge shot. So if you hear me say that, if you hear me say, do a pillar here, that's what I mean. I mean, charge a shot, do a pseudo screw, and then release the charge shot. And it's just a word that I call it so that you know what I mean when I say that. So I don't have to describe the whole thing every time. Okay, so the last pattern to go over is the 2+ round right slow. And this is the pattern that uh, good players, like high level players, like to complain about the most because it's not very common. The right mid is much more common, and so when Phantoon zooms by that right mid location, they like to complain the fact that they got a slow when it was kind of not exactly probable to begin with. Um, okay, so that's the fast there. So we're setting up for the mid. Phantoon zooms past us on the mid pattern. And then we're going to seek this location, which is 2 tiles to the left of where we were just standing and facing the opposite direction. So we do the pillar right here, facing left, for the mid possibility. But if it ends up being a slow, then we move over to this location and we face the right. So Phantoon's going to spawn here, or the eye's going to open here. We do the pillar, we fire the shot, and then we seek the -2 location. That crack that is 2 locations over from the center of the room. Okay, so let's try that. I used to do this pattern where I would just go all the way to the corner, but I missed it a couple times, and I think it's actually better if you just kind of seek this location here. I think it's more consistent. So just to kind of let you know, there are multiple ways of doing these, and it's good to experiment, find out what works for you. All right, so this is going to be a right slow followed by a right slow. This is the part where you complain. Okay, there you go. All right, so that's the that's the right slow. Did I go over the visual cue for that one? I think. Yeah. So we miss the mid. Yeah, it's again, it's that leading dangly lobe crossing that that park bench right angle. That's the visual cue that I use for this one. Yeah, and there we go. Okay, so that's all the patterns. And Eternal, just kind of as a reminder, I'll even paste it in chat here. So all of the images that I'm using in this tutorial are found at the location that I just posted, and that location is here on my notepad. So let me just kind of make sure that I've covered all of the topics that I wanted to cover. Let's see. I talked about tracking and what it means to maintain a location. So I'll just kind of briefly recap that real quick here. When I seek a location, like here, as in that last example, this is where I want the X factor to come in because this is where Phantoon's going to be at that time, so long as my movement is consistent. But if I get hit, then I might end up over here, or I might end up over here. And so I just try to get back to that location. So that's like maintaining a location. Okay, but what is tracking? So tracking is a different skill altogether, and it's not going to be, it's one of those like higher level skills using the strat. So just kind of do the Phantoon by numbers part of this first. And then as you get better at this, you're going to start to develop an intuitive sense for the intersection of your X factor and Phantoon. Like maybe something was a little wonky, like in the way that you got hit when you released a charge shot. You seek the location, and so your movement wasn't as consistent as it usually is. You might notice that Phantoon's movement looks like it's not going to intersect this location by the time the X factor particles come in. You might just kind of develop this intuitive sense for being able to tell. If that's the case, you can do what I call tracking, which is you can kind of make micro adjustments to your location. What I do is you will be holding the charge beam because you're waiting for the X factor to come in. So I'll just keep holding charge, and I'll hold angle up or angle down, and that way you can kind of inch forward if you need to. That's why you're angling up, or you can kind of moonwalk back a little bit if you need to, and that's the fact that you're holding the charge button down. So you can kind of modulate your distance on the screen a little bit in order to get the X factor particle to come in at a slightly different location. Okay, so that's tracking. That's kind of like assessing that, oh, I'm a little off this time. I think I need to be a little bit over here in order for it to work right. Okay, so I have set up the flowchart in such a way that it should have to minimize tracking. You should be able to just kind of play Phantoon by numbers. That's really the theme of what I'm trying to do here. But you will learn tracking at some point in the future, and it's good to be aware so that you can start kind of doing that intuitively. Okay. Blue flame interference is one of the last things I wanted to talk about. Blue flames suck. They're just a complete Joker wild card in this whole thing. They can eat your jumps. They can eat your shots. They can have you tank more damage than you want, and sometimes you just kind of have to deal with it. That's why I've said that this is a tank-heavy strat, because you are charging for an X factor at some point, and there's going to be blue flames all over the screen sometimes, and they are liable to push you out of the location that you actually want to be in. And so sometimes you just kind of have to tank the damage and then do your pseudo screw or something like that. So don't be afraid to tank damage even when you're charging, because sometimes it's better to just take a hit from a blue flame than for it to kind of like chase you out of position. And now you're out of position and you have to try to make up for it. So that's something to, to watch out for too. Also, like I've mentioned before, when Phantoon's eye opens, he can kind of like drop some blue flames, and sometimes those eat your charge shots, and there's not a really good way I've found around that. Maybe I'll explore ways in the future to like, do angle shots or something to try to, avoid that kind of thing. I'm not there yet. So at some point, maybe there'll be like a future, addendum or something to this strategy. Okay. Also, blue flames can eat your jumps, and that part really sucks too. Theo655, thank you so much for the follow. You have gained the distinction of being the first person to use that new alert that I spent all morning this morning creating. Yeah, nice to see you, dude. Thanks for dropping by. So I'm doing a new alert sound. So that's the victory music from Chrono Cross, but only when you gain a level. The normal victory music is a little bit different. Ionix, good to see you again. Okay, so blue flames, yeah, sometimes they interfere with you, and there's just not a whole lot you can do about it. One pitfall to point out in particular, when you are yeah, no problem, dude. I hope it's helpful. When you're doing one of the patterns where you come over here and then you jump up to the top there, if there's a blue flame in this location, the location where you're supposed to go to, if it hits you right after you jump, then you stop jumping, and it can kind of eat your jump, and it'll throw off the timing, and you will probably miss the X Factor. Yeah, Theo, I'm gonna, I'll keep this highlighted on my Twitch channel, and I'm also gonna upload it to YouTube, so it'll be available permanently. Okay, so yeah, blue flames. One thing I'm very often doing is that up until the point where I have to start charging for the pseudo screw, I'll be just firing out a bunch of wave shots to try to clear as many blue flames as you can, because you can always get like flame lamed, where a blue flame eats one of your X Factor particles, and so by just keeping them as clear as you possibly can, that minimizes the chance of that happening. So I will often, in fact, I think it's the 2+ round left slow pattern is one where you fire the shot into Phantoon right there. I will actually be firing shots this direction until I see Phantoon in the visual cue location, and then I'll turn around and start charging. Okay, and that keeps the blue flames clear on the screen. All right. Okay, so I have a little video that I made to talk about flame lane protection, but I'm actually going to talk about 3 tanking first. I am a 4 tanker, and I'm going to be a 4 tanker for a long time. You probably don't have to seriously consider 3 tanking until you're like in the 46, 45 time frame, and I'm in the 49 time frame right now. So maybe at some point I'll drop the Kraid E-Tank, but until then, I'm going to be having 3 energy tanks by the time that I get up to Phantoon. First one is in Terminator Room. Second one is the high jump E-Tank, and then the second one would be the Kraid E-Tank, and then the third one would be the high jump E-Tank. So by the time you get up to Phantoon, you've got 3 E-Tanks. If you are a 3 tanker, then you're going to skip Kraid E-Tank, and you're going to have 2 energy tanks by the time you get up here. Like I said from the beginning, this is a tank-heavy strat, and so this strat may not work for you at all if you're going to do 3 tanking, and you may have to do something completely different. Um, having said that, uh, I would like to try to put some effort in the future if and when I start three tanking to see if there's a way that I can kind of mitigate damage using and still like salvaging this strat. I'm not there yet. I don't know if it's possible. It may not be. But I think I'm going to try it once I get there. So just, be aware of that, I guess. Yeah, Theo, the double X Factor strat is actually pretty uncommon. Not everyone uses it. Um, there are other strats that you can get a consistent two round out of Phantoon each time. And so this is just the way I do it, and it's because for me, I have found a way, and it's kind of complicated, but I've found a flowchart that is just consistent for me. I get it a lot. I get the two round a lot. Um, and so that's kind of why I'm doing this tutorial, is so if people are having trouble with their Phantoon consistency, then maybe expending some effort into learning this strat would help them. That's the idea. Okay, so um, so three tanking is sort of like a TBD. Maybe I'll update my strat at some point in the future for it, but as of right now, I don't recommend using this strat if you're three tanking. It's for four tankers. Okay. All right. The last thing to talk about is flame lane protection. So let's talk about some numbers here. Okay. You know what? Let's just do this. Simplify things. Okay. So if you land all of your X Factor particles in the first round, you hit the pseudo screw and charge shot, and then you land all four of your X Factor particles. Phantoon will have 1,150 health left. Um, and then that is. Let me actually not butcher this. So, Phantoon has 2,500 health. Okay, so each X Factor particle does 300 damage. There's four particles, and so that's a total of 1,200 damage. But you also do 150 damage from the charge shot. So that is a total of 1,350 damage, leaving Phantoon with 1,150 health if you do it right. Okay, so you can do 1,350 damage per round using the strat of charge shot, 4 X Factor particles. So that's why this is a pretty consistent two-round strategy, because Phantoon will have less than that in the second round. But a blue flame might eat one of your particles, and if it does, that damage does not get delivered to Phantoon, and Phantoon will have 1,450 health. And like I said, using the strat, you can only deal 1,350 damage per round. So you will have 100 health on Phantoon left over if you get flame lamed. And that will force the third round, which is really unfortunate. The idea here is to have a strat that gives you a consistent two round. So we have to find 100 extra health somewhere, or 100 extra damage to stack onto this strategy in order to ensure that most of the time, the vast majority of the time, we're going to two-round Phantoon. And as it turns out, what you can do is that after the particles come in and deliver damage to Phantoon, there's about a 10, 11 frame window or so where Phantoon is still vulnerable before he disappears. And you can switch to missiles and spam them and fire a missile into Phantoon, dealing an extra 100 damage. You only need to do this on one of the rounds. You don't need to do it on both. And so I do it on the first round. I have not been doing it in the examples today because it's difficult and it's something that I'm working on. But what I did do was I made a video that I can show you that gives you an example of hitting an extra missile in every one of the first round patterns. Okay, so I'll try to demonstrate it, but there's no guarantees here. Okay, so there you see I did get flame lamed, and I did not get the missile off in time. So what that means is that Phantoon has 1,450 health, and that's not good because now you have to deal extra damage in order to salvage a 2-round. So what you do is you press item select twice as the X Factor particles are coming in. If you press item select before the X Factor particles start coming in, you'll deselect power bombs before the X Factor initiates and you won't get an X Factor. So that's why the timing is pretty tight on this. You have to wait for those X Factor particles to spawn, then you select missiles, and then you spam missile shot, and there's a good chance that that you'll get a missile to fire off after the X Factor particles hit Phantoon. You cannot fire anything from the cannon while an X Factor particle is on screen. So that's another aspect of the timing that makes this difficult, is that if once you select missiles and you start spamming, she's actually not going to fire anything because there's still X Factor particles coming in. Then they hit Phantoon, and then you have that 10-frame window to get one off. So let me show you that video so that you can see what they look like when done correctly. Okay. Thanks, Cher. I am almost done. This is the last topic. All right, here we go. So this is the left fast. So you'll notice that Phantoon now has 1,050 health. So what that means is that no particles were eaten, and I got the extra missile off. And I did that by selecting missiles while the X Factor particles were coming in, and then firing a missile once all the X Factor particles were gone within 10 frames. And then you have to remember to reselect your power bombs for the second round. Yeah, so Theo, this is optional. We've moved into the advanced part of this strategy. Don't try to do this from the beginning. This is something you incorporate as you get experience. So here's left mid. And I did get a missile in there. I fired a second one, but I got a first one off too. And you'll notice that if you get that 1,050 health, you might get a superfluous particle dangling around once you kill him. And that's fine. The particle will go away by the time you have to actually push a button again. That's not a problem. Alright, here's the left slow. Again, that was actually 2 missiles. One of them went into Phantoon. Alright, and this should be a right fast. Oh, I can smell that pizza from here. Alright, right mid. Okay, if I recall, during right slow, I actually do get flame lamed, and so you can kind of see the exact use case that this strategy is intended to resolve. So notice now that Phantoon has 1350 health. So that's that situation where one particle did get eaten, but I got an extra missile in. So remember, 1350 health is what we can reasonably expect to deal in damage in one round using the charge shot and X Factor. And so here comes the charge shot and the X Factor, and Phantoon does in fact die in the second round. So that's the whole idea, is to be able to achieve that right there. Okay, I'm at the end of my list of topics, so I actually have dinner waiting for me, so I think I basically covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I think I'll just leave you guys with the notion that this is not something you get for free. You can't just be told, oh, do X, Y, and Z, and then it'll always happen that way. It takes a lot of grinding. It takes a lot of practice in order to be able to do this. So just stick with it. You will get it after after time. But how nice, do you think it feels to be on awesome paces, knowing that you have a really good chance of just always getting a two-round Phantoon every single time. And so Phantoon is not the thing that kills your run. And, Phantoon has a bit of a reputation as being a run killer, but I kind of feel like that's not necessarily the case for me. Now, having said that, in the first sub 50 run I ever did, my current PB, I did actually mess this up, and I got a 3-round Phantoon, but everything else in the run went good enough. So nothing is 100% consistent, but I think that this strat is somewhat consistent for people at near our level. Okay, thanks for all the thanks, guys. You are welcome. It was really fun. I put a lot of effort into producing like the pictures and everything and the video and all that, and I had a good time doing it. So I just I really hope that this is helpful to someone. Feel free to hit me up, send me a whisper or something like that if you liked this tutorial, or if you are like, yeah, this is a strat for me, I want to grind it. And if it's helpful to you at all, feel free to let me know, or if you have any questions about how to implement this kind of stuff. All right, so I think I'm gonna cut it off there, and we'll find someone to raid. Let's take a look.